everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of the Tamiya Astute 2022 online build. In part 1 of this build, we assembled most of the rear end of the buggy, the gearbox, suspension, and shocks. We also covered all the tools we suggest to make the build easy. In this video, we're moving on to the front of the Astute, the steering, front suspension, and front shocks. Okay, let's jump right in. We're still working with the last bag we opened up in part 1 of this build, bag C. Hopefully you still have those parts organized. Make sure the 3mm nut is fully seated in the space before installing the cover. Note that the bell crank arms have a raised nub on them. That part goes toward the steering rack. Be careful not to over tighten. You want both arms to swing freely. Use your turnbuckle tools to build 2 steering links. The CompetitionX turnbuckle tool can certainly help you out here. Link in the description. When attaching the steering links, make sure the groove or knurled side of the turnbuckles faces the left side of the car. This makes adjustments easier when the rotations of the turnbuckles are all in the same direction. Drop the steering rack into place. If it doesn't swing freely, your steering arm screws may be too tight. Loosen them up slightly and try again. The rocker arm posts are keyed to small pockets on the underside of the top deck. Make sure they are fully seated before tightening them down. Steering system done. Give the steering rack some back and forth motion to make sure everything still swings freely. You can also give the front a twist and see it's pretty rigid for such a unique setup. There are 2 different ball studs used on the rocker arms. While installation of the ball studs doesn't matter at the moment, installation of the completed rocker arm assembly does. Pay close attention during that step. Here's where you need to double check your installation of the rocker arm assemblies. On to Bag D, the front shocks. Since you followed along with the build of the rear shocks, we're going to breeze through these a little faster than normal. Like the fronts, you need to fill the shock to the top with fluid and slowly plunge the shaft up and down a few times to release any air from under the piston. Then set the shock aside in your shock stand for a bit while the air bubbles rise to the top. To bleed the shocks, roll the green bladder onto the top of the shock, forcing any excess fluid out. Tighten the cap on a few threads, then compress the shock. Once compressed, hold the shaft in place and screw the cap on the rest of the way. Compress the shocks together as shown. If they bottom out at the same time, your shocks have been bled equally. Like the rears, Tamiya doesn't give us a measurement for the overall shock length. As long as they are equal, you're good to go. If not, you can lengthen or shorten the rod end to get them to match. Make sure you're attaching the shock bottom to the broached ball stud on the rocker arm. This gives the option to easily remove the ball stud for tuning purposes. Front shocks and rocker arms done. Nice job. Some quick compression of the shocks should provide a nice, smooth, damped feel. Time to build some camber turnbuckles. You know what to do. To make holding the body mount way easier, I used a body clip in the body mount during installation. Just to reiterate, make sure you aim the notched or knurled markings on the turnbuckles to the left side of the car. front arms are not directional, but make sure you install everything on the correct side during this step. There are two front bumpers included in the kit. One is for the Super Avante and one is for the Astute. Make sure you use the one with 3 mounting holes. Build and install the link rods. It's also a good idea to make sure you measure them to make sure they're the same length. This body clip ensures the axle assembly stays in place, for now. I found this part of the build a bit tricky. To make it much easier, I installed the top kingpin screw until it just poked through, then fit the camber block in place before wrapping up the step. Add the front fender mounts if you want to. I kinda dig them, so I'm adding them to the build. And there you go. The front end of your Astute 2022 is now complete. This is certainly a unique front end, but I have to say it's very well thought out. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it performs. That wraps up this video, but if you found it helpful, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of future videos in this build series. Thanks for watching.